Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 121, I think, of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we're coming to you once again from the worldwide headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We are highlighting another great, well, it's part of a great organization, but a project that's coming up as we highlight, and I'm going to say the Paleo Project now before our esteemed guest and his roadies tell us about this project happening at the Schiele Museum here very soon. We have Tony Pasour, Tiffany Stewart, and Elizabeth Utic. Did I pronounce that right, Elizabeth, with us today? Sorry, I should have asked that beforehand. Tony's Assistant Director of Interpretation, Tiffany is the Marketing Coordinator, and Elizabeth is the Director of Development at the museum. However, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that Elizabeth and Tiffany are not on camera, but they're going to participate whether they like it or not. So, Tony, Tiffany, Elizabeth, it's great to have you back on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome. Glad to be here.
Absolutely.
I want to commend you on your expertise with that very traditional Gaston County name, Pasour. That shows that you really are here to stay.
So, is that correct?
Yeah, that's
correct.
What
I thought.
Very good.
What else are you called on occasion?
Well, we'll get into that some other time. Snake oil salesman most recently.
I can only imagine. Yeah. You know what? I wish we had recorded beforehand, before we actually started the official recording. That would have been that we had some really gem audio and banter going on beforehand.
Yeah, I went through all my great content before we started. It's
yeah,
all downhill now.
Yeah,
so,
well,
you know, like the Warner Brothers frog.
10 minutes is 10 minutes. So,
yeah.
So it's been a while. Tony was back on episode 51, which it seems odd that over a year and a half ago. I mean, if you told me at episode 51 we were going to make it to episode 121, I probably would have said, probably not.
I thought maybe it was odd because you invited me back after that.
Well, this makes the Schiele Museum officially number 5, I think, didn't we say, when the fossil fair, I was going to say fossil fuel again. I said that in the episode last when we recorded the other one. So, but the officially the only 5-time guest. However, I mean, the Schiele Museum, there's always something going on that we could talk about. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're lucky enough to have them on our for the 10th time here coming up in the next few years, as long as Naomi's still here to make sure we don't mess anything up. So I can see this is really starting off great, this episode. So in case you don't know, I'm going to ask Tony to answer a question that we always start with, and you go back to episode 51, you can check to see if he says the exact same stuff, but we'll see. So just, if you don't mind, Tony, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the main content. How'd you get involved with the museum, and just anything and everything that Elizabeth is okay with you sharing?
Well, I always like to point out off the top in talking to someone, I'm a lifelong resident of Gaston County, and it's not apparent because I don't have an accent. I just blend in seamlessly in conversations. But I've lived here my whole life. My family's been in this county for a long time. And my history seems to have been interwoven with the history of the Schiele Museum. And so I find it quite fitting that I've been able to spend the majority of my career at this organization that I love and have since I was a young fella. My grandmother used to bring me to the Schiele on my birthday each year. And she was a lady that appreciated culture, and here's this farm kid, and I think she had questions and concerns. So at least once a year she loaded me up in the car and took me to the Schiele, and we went in and we really enjoyed all the different exhibits. Loved animals, loved American Indians, loved archaeology, loved everything about the Schiele. And it didn't hurt that after the visit we went right up the street and stopped at Hardee's and got a milkshake. But I remember those days very, very fondly.
Yeah, Hardee's used to be right above the Lineberger Park.
Yeah, right there. So, but we would stop in there. But that was a tradition. So I was in and out of the Schiele Museum a lot during my childhood. I remember we took a field trip in kindergarten to the Schiele, and I remember walking across the footbridge on the nature trail. We got a different bridge now, but it was an outdoor experience. Was great. I remember that. And then I remember going to the Schiele in the 4th grade, and that was the first time I was ever on television. Our class was seated in front of a bison, and we were being instructed in the exhibit gallery. And this old program, a TV program called Carolina Camera, came through.
Yep, I remember
and
that.
They videoed us, and And there I was on TV for the first time in front of the bison that I walk by every single day today. So many other field trips through school over the years. I actually came back to the Schiele as a group leader during a brief stint working for another organization in between college and my time at the museum, and actually led a field trip to the Schiele. And then lo and behold, within just another year and a half, I was employed there, and I've been there ever since, 30 years now.
All right.
So I've done a lot of different things at Schiele. I started out doing educational programs, and I roamed the countryside in a van, teaching natural history in schools across the state. They entrusted me with the education department. They entrusted me with the planetarium. They entrusted me with the exhibits program, and on and on and on. So as my career has advanced at the Schiele, I've been able to do a lot of different things, and it's been a dream come true in a lot of ways. This project we're going to talk about today is the culmination of that in my mind. I feel like this is my Super Bowl, the thing I've been waiting to do my entire life, and it's here.
Well, I know, my involvement in the community, I know we've been hearing a lot about it for a very long time. So that's one reason we wanted to get you guys on here to talk about it. And just real quick, anything he said inaccurate? I'm talking to it's all good over there? Okay. So, no, y'all, if anything gets.
Well, how would they know? It's
well,
all prehistory. Yeah. Okay.
So
that's good. That's a safe bet.
All right. So
neither one of them has been called the snake oil salesman. Okay.
So let's get right to it. Okay. So obviously it's hard to your passion for this doesn't come out at all, as you're speaking.
Yeah,
so that's
I'm trying to, I try to just crawl out of bed every day to go to work.
Tony, Can you lift it up a little bit on your excitement about this? So,
okay.
We talked about this briefly, but remember, and you're talking to a novice who can't even barely spell paleo, much less understand what it means. So, what is it? Why now? What are you trying to accomplish? Just I'm going to let you have it, and there's a 3-hour time limit for you to talk about it. Look at this
little graphic here. You can see an image above the word paleo. I don't know if we can see that on the camera, but you see the icon of science, the Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Right.
Paleo basically it's short for paleontology, which is the science of extinct things, living things that were here before us that we've not been around to see. And these living things have left records in the earth, in rocks, known as fossils. So the study of fossil life is the science of paleontology. So our project is called the Paleo Project because the focus is the science of paleontology. One particular aspect of paleontology that generally motivates and excites people to come and learn. And so our project is about dinosaurs and about bringing dinosaurs to Gastonia in a big way. So just a little bit about it.
All right. So, for me, especially growing up, dinosaurs, reptiles, snakes, whatever. And we even, when you're hearing this episode, it's going to be a couple of weeks after we release an episode about the fossil fair. And we talked a little bit about that, but that was mostly about that event that would have been, I guess, this past weekend when we released this episode. So, what brought us to this point? So, there's always been for years, right? Little projects going on at the museum. I mean, I've seen it. I grew up on Churchill Drive, so when I think I mentioned this the last episode we were talking about this. How unfortunately I probably take it for granted because I literally grew up in the first house on the right on Churchill Drive. So I walked by there to go to Greer Middle School, or at the time Greer Junior High, every day. Walked to Sherwood Elementary School. So for those who, just let's get into a little more detail about it. So how did this come about, and talk about the time frame or anything, just get into the specific details. And remember that I'm not a professional interviewer, so I might have to have Tiffany and Elizabeth make sure we ask the right questions.
Well, I think you're doing a great job, and just, keep in mind who you're talking to. But you just said something that was very insightful. You mentioned some things that were interesting to you.
Oh, yeah.
And you included dinosaurs. I believe you said reptiles. There's a few other things that I would put in that category. There's these can't miss home runs in our natural science industry: dinosaurs, bugs, snakes, American Indians. And we have to be very aware of that. Those are very interesting subjects to most people. And as a result, they're very marketable. And if we recognize the marketability and the interest that these subjects bring, then we can use that as a mechanism in which to convey science. So I like to give an example like this. We all know to some degree that climate change is a topic for discussion, whether you think it's happening or not, whether you agree with it or not, or the science that goes around it. It's something that is potentially impactful, right?
Sure.
But it's absolutely not marketable. No one would come to the Schiele Museum to participate in a program on climate change. We could put that on the marquee on the road. Come hear about climate change. Climate Change Day on Saturday. No one's turning out. We could even put free admission. No one's coming. I think we could put, we'll give you $20 to show up. They won't come see that. It's just not marketable. But is it relevant? Well, I would argue, yes, it's very relevant. So in order for the museum to do its work, to share information, we have to be able to attract audiences, to hear the messages, to attend the programs. So one strategy to do that is to identify what subjects are interesting to people and then use those subjects to convey important scientific concepts. Believe it or not, the dinosaurs dealt with climate change. It was a relevant issue for those guys. And because the world changed around them in the recognizable form that we recognize dinosaurs in, they're no longer here. So if we are able to do an exhibit about dinosaurs, then there's science that surrounds that exhibit that has meaning and relevance for us today. So that's the real value in this opportunity. Not we want to do a prehistoric freak show about things that lived millions of years ago.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
But why is that important? We use mechanisms like reptiles, insects, American Indians, dinosaurs, these subjects to bring people to the table so we can then share important natural science concepts. So that's really where this idea started. The museum began in the early 1960s and worked really hard to establish a number of foundational exhibits that cover the basics of natural science, zoology, botany, archaeology. In the 70s, there was an identified need to expand that story to include what we call the earth sciences, the non-living sciences around us. And those include a couple really broad, important areas, including geology and paleontology, basically the rocks and minerals that make up the earth and the forces that govern these things, and the related story of life trapped in those rocks. So the museum endeavored to build a permanent exhibit hall to cover this area. And this work began in the early 1980s and culminated in the opening of the Hall of Earth and Man in 1988. And this hall was about 2/3 paleontology, or the history of life on Earth, and about 1/3 geology, rocks and minerals. And it's pretty expansive. It covered everything from A to Z. You could basically go into that hall, learn what fossils are, how fossils are recovered and studied, and then in small snapshots go through the entire history of life on Earth in about 2,000 square feet. Pretty amazing. And the exhibits were recreations and models and also real fossils. It was really cool, really neat, and it was weighted toward the age of mammals, the last 50 million years, particularly the Pleistocene, the last 20,000 years, let's say. Then it moved into an examination of rocks and minerals and mining and faceting and capping and jewelry and all kinds of stuff. So there was a lot of things going on in that room. And around 2014, 2015, we noticed that the gallery was having some structural issues. It was going to break off and fall down into the creek due to, the ironically, forces of the earth. We think maybe an earthquake that happened contributed to that. So we had to make some changes to the room. And to save the room, we were required to go in and remove all the exhibits and install helical piers from the inside. Now, along the way, we were struggling with a problem in the museum. When you build an exhibit, when you tell a story, you freeze the science in time. The science of the Hall of Earth and Man was trapped in, at best, 1988, but in reality, it was science that came out of the late 70s and early 80s that was captured in the exhibit. And paleontology in particular has made a number of rapid advances, and our understanding of the science of life before us is different than it was at that time. So each year it's increasingly out of date. So we realize, oh gosh, we need to do something here. But it's sort of like as a homeowner, you have a bathroom. We need to remodel that bathroom, but we need to do this work. Oh, we need to do the kitchen. We need to, our tax bill's here. You just kind of never do it until the moment comes that the plumbing springs a leak and it's ruined, right? So we arrived at that moment with the structural problems. Then you have a decision. Do you just go back and rebuild what you had? You're married, right?
Yes.
You know the answer to this. No, a complete renovation and update is what you do. And if you're not careful, it'll turn into your whole house. And that's relevant to what's happened at the Schiele Museum. But we decided this was the great opportunity to do something different. But we didn't jump into it immediately. There was a lot of consideration of this, a lot of evaluation of our position and what we should do. Because prior, the exhibit was very broad. It covered a lot of things, not just paleontology, but also geology. So we waited a little bit, and we tried a temporary exhibit in the area that worked real well. And then there was this, what do they call it, a pandemic? I've heard something about that. That came through and just suspended life as we knew it for a time.
We don't talk about that on
that came through. And our temporary exhibit had worn by that point. It was during the final year, if it is over this pandemic, that we came to a realization that it was time to rebuild the gallery, and we made an institutional decision about what we would do. And instead of trying to cover the history of life on Earth from A to Z in 2,000 square feet, we made a decision to focus on the most marketable part of the story and use that marketable part of the story, the dinosaurs, as a way to really teach science. Part of our assessment included a look around the Carolinas at who else does this and does it well. And guess what? There's a great exhibit in Raleigh, but no one else does it. You can drive from Atlanta to D.C., and you don't find a whole lot when it comes to the most marketable concept in science, the dinosaurs. I mean, we had a T-Rex in the lobby, and we could do a half hour on that T-Rex. Be happy to sometime. But we had a very limited presence in the dinosaurs. No one in the Carolinas gives our growing region access to dinosaurs on a broad scale. So we thought, that's a wonderful opportunity because dinosaurs always work. We've got a gallery that needs to teach paleontology. We need to build something within that gallery. And we were also having feedback from our support in the community that if we found the right idea, they'd support it, help us build it. So it was pretty easy from there. Oh, gosh, everybody knows dinosaurs work. There's no place to take your children to see a lot of dinosaurs under one roof. The museum's got a 60 by 60 gallery with a 20-foot ceiling. And there's this guy over there that can really spin a story about it. So let's build a dinosaur exhibit. So the Paleo Project, in short, is Gastonia acquiring a state-of-the-art, world-class dinosaur exhibit that will serve as a regional attraction. And we're just a little bit excited.
Okay. Wow. So you just covered a lot. So I've seen Jurassic Park, right? So
me too.
When you first started there, you were talking about, climate change and the dinosaurs dealt with that. They're no longer here. Well, there's a reason, right? Even in Jurassic Park, they teach you that dinosaurs and people together are bad, especially, for the most part. They're not meant to live together for the most part. So, but man, it's so exciting.
I'm gonna argue a little bit with you there that our coexistence with dinosaurs has been ongoing. You see them every day. I've got a number of small dinosaurs at my house that I feed and take care of. At Thanksgiving, we have a Goblosaurus on our table. I mean, the birds that share the world with us are basically the direct ancestors of the dinosaurs that we know. The dinosaurs, as we know them, as we think of them, the popular idea of dinosaurs, went extinct 65 million years ago. But a number of animals survived the cataclysm that occurred then, and the birds that we know today made it through. So we sometimes call birds we call the extinct dinosaurs non-avian dinosaurs.
Okay, that's fair.
So we have coexisted with dinosaurs throughout our history. And I point this out because the birds that we're so familiar with give us lots of clues and information about the dinosaurs. And there's been a radical shift in the perception of dinosaurs that this movie helped usher in, from being dim-witted, slow creatures doomed to extinction that were more reptilian in nature, to being fast, agile, pretty interesting creatures, more like birds.
Yeah.
And Jurassic Park was this, it was a book.
Yeah.
And then it was a movie that really reignited interest in the dinosaurs in pop culture. And I think that was like 1993.
I think
that
that's
is
right,
not
yeah.
diminished. I mean, it was the first time that
It's
I
hard to
was
believe
blown
that's,
away
30,
by CGI.
30 years ago now?
I mean, well, I love to talk about, I was a dinosaur kid.
Before you were born, Naomi?
Yeah, 30 years, yeah. So I was a dinosaur kid. And I grew up in the 70s and 80s watching, I was watching something on television yesterday morning, Godzilla is not a dinosaur, it's based on Godzilla. It's a guy in a suit. It's obviously a guy in a suit. It's silly.
It was a marathon
silly.
on Chime TV yesterday.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It's just silly
I saw
looking.
part of it.
There was this movie called The Last Dinosaur. I loved it as a kid. I went back and looked at it. There's a guy with a suit. He got hit in the head with a rock one time. The T-Rex, you could see the suit like DNM in from the rock. That's the best we had. And then, of course, there was stop motion. The original King Kong movie that capitalized on dinosaurs using that technology.
So I got
we couldn't illustrate this.
So something we talked about at the Fossil Fair episode. Did you watch Land of the Lost growing up?
Yes, unfortunately. When you had like 3 channels, you had to watch
Thank
something.
goodness, because nobody else here the other day knew what I was talking about.
I always wanted Grumpy the T-Rex to eat those people, but I don't know
Yeah,
if they'd have a show after that.
Of course, they just they would stab it, look like with a pencil. Coming out of the cave when it was trying to get at them.
Had a sharpened log, and they would run at him, and,
Okay,
and he never learned to get out of the way.
And the slee stacks were just the greatest things
now,
ever.
those guys were interesting. There was this paleontology, the paleontologist in Raleigh, Dale Russell, and he's no longer with us, but Dale Russell did a study on what would dinosaurs look like, non-avian dinosaurs look like, if they hadn't gone extinct. And he actually developed this model life form that he had sculpted, a humanoid dinosaur that he would go around with, and the thing looked like a slee stack.
Like a slee stack?
Absolutely.
Well, listen, I don't know. When I was little, I was terrified that slee stacks were coming to my house.
Hissing noise.
I mean, I wasn't so worried about the T-Rex coming, but because I could T-Rex was going to sneak in my house, but the slee stack, it was going to sneak in my house, and it was going to do damage. It was going to do bodily damage, harm to me and my family.
Part of that, what you're talking about, is why dinosaurs work.
Yes, absolutely.
Dinosaurs, in a lot of ways, if you look at them, they're monstrous. A lot of them. Some were, pretty benign and as a result boring, But you think about a T-Rex or a Triceratops with the horns or a Stegosaurus with the armor. I mean, these are scary animals that if you coexisted with, you wouldn't walk up to one and pet it. They would be terrifying animals. And we're fascinated by terrifying things. But dinosaurs are safe, and they're safe for children to explore and learn about because they are in our past. They're not contemporary.
Yeah.
So there are no real danger to us. So it's safe terror in a lot of ways. And there's so many adaptations that made them just bizarre and weird looking, and there's all this mystery that surrounds them about, well, exactly how did this thing live? We can see how it was built, but what did it do and how did it act? So there's a lot of debate and a lot of imagination required.
Yeah, I'm not worried about
dinosaurs.
I'm not worried about the bird ancestors coming to eat my head in one bite. Like we are. And most people, fair or not, most people probably think of T-Rex or whatever when they hear the word dinosaur, the novice, right? Not the expert like you. So is it fair to say that you mentioned the T-Rex that you had in the lobby? Is that the removal of that? Wasn't that kind of what kicked off all this discussion in the community? Like, what's going on at the museum? I mean, and how long has that been? I mean, that's been a while now, right?
That was purposeful. And I had a pretty good argument with one of my handlers over here about that, because if you want to shake people up, you do something to the T-Rex, right? Because the T-Rex had become synonymous with the Schiele Museum in a lot of ways, and it was our word mark and all this stuff. Well, that T-Rex came about because the Schiele Museum hosted a traveling exhibit in 1999 that was a collection of dinosaurs that was moving around the country from museum to museum. And the Schiele was the last stop on the tour, and they were going to sell all the dinosaurs. And I was still an educator at the time, but they gave me that exhibit to curate. And I had become vaguely aware of a gift that had been given to the museum 10 years before to purchase a dinosaur. And then lo and behold, this whole show's for sale. And they had a T-Rex. It was a no-brainer. But we started talking about doing that. So we thought we would engage our audience in helping us decide which dinosaur to buy. And there were some really cool things in the exhibit. So we came up with a voting system. So I made some ballots, little card ballots with different dinosaurs' names on them, and little circles, and I got a hole puncher and put it with the ballots, and I put the ballot box at T-Rex's feet and let people vote on what dinosaur they wanted to buy. And lo and behold, I think we had about 4,500 votes. 3,800 people voted for us to purchase the T-Rex, and we had just enough money to do that. Coincidentally, that was late 1999. In 2000, we had the Bush-Gore election. Remember the hanging chads, that whole thing?
Yes.
So I pulled the ballots back out, and we had hanging chads on our dinosaur ballots. And I wonder if we should have bought the Triceratops. Maybe T-Rex stole the election. I don't know. But anyway, we've got T-Rex there. T-Rex, we said, okay, what do you do with the T-Rex? Well, we didn't design a room around it. We just bought a T-Rex, so we moved it to the lobby. It was the largest room we had, and it served a wonderful purpose. It kicked the visit off to the Schiele Museum with a bang.
Oh, sure it does.
Putting the most iconic image of science right inside the lobby. It's wonderful, but I had a problem with it. Everything after that, if you're a dinosaur enthusiast, everything after that is downhill, literally downhill in the Schiele Museum. So I always thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great to have this at the end of the experience, and everything is a build-up, a lead to that.
Yeah.
And then when we started talking about doing a dinosaur exhibit, the idea of building a dinosaur exhibit without the T-Rex in the center of it, I just couldn't see
Couldn't fathom it.
Couldn't fathom it. And the other thing about the T-Rex, it was an outdated neutral pose. It's basically a statue of a T-Rex. Well, this dinosaur was discovered in 1987. At the time, it was the most complete T-Rex discovered. But there's been many other tyrannosaurs discovered since then, more bones found. You don't recover the entire animal when you find a fossil collection. Sometimes it's partial. So it was a bit incomplete, and it was a bit out of date as far as the pose. And the pose was just it's just standing there. I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful in this gallery if we were able to use the dinosaurs, pose them in dynamic ways, and let them silently tell stories in their body positioning. So, and T-Rex is such a powerful image. What story could we tell if we presented the T-Rex in a different way? So the removal of the T-Rex served a couple purposes. One, it got people talking. People realized something was going on at the museum. What's big enough for the museum to take down the T-Rex?
Right.
It also gave us an opportunity to relocate the T-Rex and an opportunity to update the T-Rex, to refurbish it and tell a new story. So we're going to reintroduce Gaston's T-Rex to our audience in the future, but it's going to look different, and he's going to be doing something different. So we're going to have the centerpiece of the dinosaur story as a centerpiece of our gallery. And I won't say too much about that because the story's still evolving.
Yeah,
but it's going to be awesome.
So okay, so we are at the end of February, 2024. What can you share? What the time frame? We talked a little bit about that beforehand, and I didn't understand a word of it. So, what can you share? Because this is going to be when people are hearing this, it's going to be just after the big, I guess, public announcement, and so it's going to be the word's going to be out, so to speak. So, what can you share about the any time frame or just any more specific information about the future of how this is going to go down, so to speak?
Well, the timeline's really interesting because theoretically, we could have this open fall of 25, and that's what we've been talking to people.
Okay.
And a number of things in this project, a number of the different facets of the project have developed in a way to facilitate that. It is possible to achieve the work by fall of 25, and that's what we're working toward. The most important thing is to do this really well because it's going to be transformative not only for the Schiele, but I think it's going to be transformative for our community, giving us a much stronger attraction than we already have. And we got a great attraction, but we put the dinosaurs in here, it's going to be very different. So the most important thing is let's knock it out of the park. If it takes another month or two to do that, then so be it.
Sure.
But we are on a timeline that would achieve this project in about 18 months, depending on how things work out. But we are working really hard to develop and deliver an exhibit that is on par with what one would find in a museum in one of the big cities in the United States, something on par with what you'd see in D.C. or New York or maybe Chicago or Denver. It's just going to be a smaller amount of space devoted to it. We're looking at about 4,200 square feet with a bit of a room addition that we're doing. And so in that amount of space, we can actually achieve quite a lot. So while we're on a pretty aggressive timeline, the main value is quality of the experience, because we know when we make this investment, it's probably going to be here for a while, and we want it to achieve really well. I'm not really concerned so much about that build timeline, because the Schiele has really excelled in doing a lot in a short amount of time. We've run for over 20 years a temporary exhibit program where we found it more cost effective to design and build the exhibits ourselves. And there was a period of time where we'd build a 3,500 square foot exhibit it for 8 months, take it down, and put another one in 5 months later. And we were really on this hamster wheel of design and production and installation. Right. So, we've been on this, about 18 months since we made the decision to get started, with another 18 months to go. That's a 3-year project development and build. After coming off one that was, basically turning things over in a year. And that seems pretty simple. But again, we're really investing a lot in the quality of the experience and the permanence of what we're doing. So it's taking a little more time.
Is there going to be anything, and y'all can smack me if this is a bad question, is there anything associated with this related to the planetarium?
There's some programmatic connections.
Okay.
The planetarium went through an upgrade for its technology in 2015, and that's an eternity in terms of technology, mind you. That's a whole other program we can talk about. But one of the advances that we realized in changing technology is we went from a system that was almost exclusively devoted to astronomy to one that made the planetarium more of a theater for all kinds of sciences. And for a time in our communication, we even branded it as the James H. Lynn Planetarium and Science Theater. And that allowed us the opportunity to cover some other subjects, particularly meteorology, which is, weather's a huge thing, some geology concepts, and even paleontology. Our planetarium program now is really adept at creating independent, homegrown programming. And Nathan, in our fossil fair conversation, probably talked about dinosaurs in space or fossils in space, or a program related to that. That's an original program coming out of our planetarium. So we can use the planetarium theater as a programmatic vehicle to reinforce different exhibit experiences like the dinosaur exhibit. So yes, I would say in our future there's a number of planetarium experiences that will relate to what happens in our dinosaur gallery.
Okay, very good. So we're touching on a lot. What is this is a question for all three of you, and I told Tiffany and Elizabeth they weren't going to get out of this, but what is the main point when a listener's done today? They're I'm sure they're going to rewind and and they don't have to rewind anymore. Sorry, that's an old school saying right there. Woo. They're going to start over and listen to it again because it's going to be such a great episode. But what do you want them to get out of this? When they're done listening to this episode, what's kind of the main point? Is there something you are looking for? Do y'all need any more help? Is there still looking for financial help with the project? Just any other questions I haven't asked? I want to make sure that we get covered here.
We welcome involvement by our residents. We want people to be involved with the museum, to be a part of our story. The Schiele Museum belongs to the people. And there's great opportunities for folks of any different means to be involved in a number of ways. And the museum has opportunities that we're willing to and very happy to share with anybody that's interested in being involved. We have done really well in developing this exhibit. We have some other goals to accomplish. We would like to make this the most amazing experience that we can possibly make it. And so any further work or development or investments that we make in the museum's project will make the product all the better. So there's great opportunities there for our citizens to become involved. We're really excited about this occasion to let people in on what's been going on with the development. And I think people are going to be really, really excited. But we were talking about a lot of dinosaurs coming to Gastonia, and this is going to be something that's within reach of folks. Now, I was a dinosaur kid. Lived in this county my entire life. Crazy about dinosaurs. My parents took me to do things, but I was 25 before I saw a real T-Rex. And that's because I had to go to Philadelphia to do it. And we want to provide that access to people here because this story is very recognizable to folks. We need to give them a mechanism in which to explore it. Right now, for most people, the dinosaurs are limited to media, books, TV, movies. We can give the average person in Gastonia and the surrounding area direct access to the dinosaurs at the Schiele Museum. And we believe that people will really respond to that.
So I think we can share probably some of the material they brought right on the YouTube version. So if you're listening to this just on audio, I would encourage you maybe to go to the YouTube channel and take a quick look at that, because we'll share some of these great images that they brought. So marketing and development, did he do a good job covering that, or is there something else that he missed?
We'll have more information on the website as well.
Okay. So he kind of glazed over the money part. Are y'all still looking for help from the community for that? Okay.
There's a $3.5 million goal for this entire project, and we're at 3.2 right now.
Oh, wow. So well on the way. So if you couldn't hear that, Elizabeth was just sharing it's a $3.5 million project, and they're currently at 3.2. So, man, so we're very close to getting to the end of that. So great. That's a great work. I mean, I'm sure, or I would hope, I should say, maybe the community is relatively supportive. And, of course, the museum is actually part of the city as well. So it's not just, there's a lot of avenues that the museum gets support, I'm sure. So, Tony, Elizabeth, Tiffany, before we shift gears with some of these questions, I'm going to make y'all answer that you probably don't want to. Anything else I haven't asked that I should have asked, or anything else you'd like to share? I mean, of course,
you never asked what dinosaurs are going to be there. We talked about T-Rex, but we just left it at that. Wouldn't you like to know?
Oh, man, absolutely.
We can tell you some other time.
No. Wow.
There's
so you deal with this every day.
There's a lot. But what I would like to say is that if you ask the average person to sort of name 4 dinosaurs if they could, it invariably would come up T-Rex, Stegosaurus, Triceratops, and Apatosaurus, also known as Brontosaurus. They're all in there.
Okay.
And that's not the end of it. We're also going to introduce some other characters, not just the fan favorites, but some lesser knowns. And one thing I'll just hint at, T-Rex, as famous as he is, did not live here in the Carolinas. But every environment has to have different ecological roles filled. The role that T-Rex filled in the western United States, that role had to be played by some dinosaur character here in the Carolinas. So the East Coast had its own version of T-Rex. It will be at the Schiele Museum in this exhibit.
Okay, very good.
The other thing I wanted to mention is the exhibit has also given us an opportunity to bring in fossil specimens from other locations. And we have some really cool fossils that we're adding that have original stories. We've acquired a duck-billed dinosaur that has extensive bite damage from a T-Rex or a similar large theropod dinosaur. And this duck-billed dinosaur escaped and survived and partially healed. And so that story was actually recorded in its fossils for over 60 million years before it was recovered in Wyoming. That's going to be on exhibit at the Schiele. We also have fossils from a second T-Rex that'll be on display with the T-Rex that our audience has been very familiar with. And we have real fossils from a mosasaur, basically a prehistoric sea monster. They roamed the inland seas during the Cretaceous. That'll be there. So it's going to be a great combination of full skeletal casts and also unique real fossils that tell individual stories about the dinosaurs. So I wanted to point that out too. And the final thing to throw in there, we are right now working on an immersive production that will take the exhibit beyond just the exhibit that you can see as a visitor into the dimensions of a show using audio, lighting, sound, and other effects. So we're trying to produce 2 experiences for one in this project. And that particular area is an area where additional investment by the community will really leverage a much greater response in the product. So we're really excited about all those components. I know the least about that. That part is still in development, but we'll know a lot more over the next couple months about what that's going to be like, and we'll be happy to share that with the audience. So those are a few more details on actually what's coming.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Listen, I appreciate that, Tony. So we're going to shift gears like we always do, and for your thanks for coming on, we make our guests endure these local Gaston County related questions, or they used to be, but since you've already been on, I'm changing them, and they're not going to be necessarily Gaston County related, but more personal nature.
Well, I will assure you, if
Elizabeth
you asked me a question before, that doesn't mean I'll give you the same answer.
Yeah, well, that's been, like I said, 70 episodes ago, so but we're not going to go there. So we're going to start in, what did I think last week I called, or with the Fossil Fair, I think I called it the Jurassic round, speed round of questions. So we're going to call it the, I don't know, Land of the Lost speed round of questions, because apparently you and I are the only 2 people that know anything about the Land of the Lost. At least, Well,
there was a movie a few years ago.
Yeah, Will Ferrell was in it, I think. Yeah, you know what? I didn't actually see it. I think I mentioned it last week. And luckily, Naomi, I'm sure Naomi has seen it because Will Ferrell is her favorite actor, right?
Really?
Negative.
No.
I don't know.
That's the guy in the elf costume, right?
That's come up. That for some reason, somehow that's come up
my wife
on multiple
keeps wanting
episodes.
me to watch that, and I just that's the guy in the elf costume.
All right, so I'm not sure I'm going to get with this question. We're going to go ahead and get started, and Elizabeth, get ready. You're next. Favorite movie?
Should it be a dinosaur answer?
Not necessarily.
I think I'd say Open Range. I'm an old cowboy at heart.
All right.
We did an exhibit on that, by the way. That's a crazy good shootout at the end of that movie.
Elizabeth is off screen, and we're going to make her answer anyway. Oh yeah, Harry Potter.
I might be an old cowboy, but Elizabeth is a nerd.
Tiffany, did you answer that last when I don't think you answered that one. Oh wow, yeah. The red pill or the blue pill? Yeah, that's an F3 thing as well. So
which one's nerdier, The Matrix or Harry Potter?
What do
you think?
I would say I would say Harry Potter for under 20-year-olds and The Matrix for over 20-year-olds. Sorry, Elizabeth. Yeah.
Very good.
Listen, my kids loved all the Harry Potter stuff.
Movies are all
absolutely.
Fun.
Yeah,
they're good.
They're terrific. Favorite vacation spot, Tony?
Emerald Isle, North Carolina.
Anywhere in the mountains, is Elizabeth. And if you, and I don't know if I said it, but Tiffany did say The Matrix. I don't know if I said that. If you couldn't hear that, that's why Tony asked about which is more nerdy. Favorite memory as a child?
Going to the Schiele Museum and seeing the 2 bears that were going to rip one another apart.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
What I've heard other people call the dancing bears. They weren't dancing. They were in mortal combat.
Yeah, they were Neo
and somebody bears attacking one another in the woods.
Neo fighting the guy that you can't say his name from Harry Potter. That's what that was representing, the 2 bears.
Oh, yeah.
Favorite memory as a child? You thought you were going to get out of all this today, didn't you?
Traveling with my family.
Okay. Oh.
They had to go all the way to London to see dinosaurs.
Wow. That's okay. What part of Georgia, if you don't mind me asking? Oh, Macon. Wow. One of my best buddies is from Macon. He's one of my F3 buddies, and I can't say his nickname here because he was named after the old hockey team, I think, that was there.
I know exactly what you're
Yeah. Tiffany, did you answer that last
We've
episode?
all been left out of the conversation now. I hope you guys enjoyed that. No one knows what you're talking about.
This is a family-friendly podcast.
Like, okay, there's 2 people talking about Macon, Georgia when this is Gaston's grave.
Yes.
Okay.
Tiffany, did you answer that question last episode? Favorite memory as a child? I know you answered the book question, but I think that's the only one I asked you.
We're brothers and sisters, so pretty much every day was a fun day at home.
All right, so she had an insane. She grew up in an insane asylum with 3 or 4 siblings. Is that what I heard you say? Wow. All right, Tony, you got a last TV or online series or movie you streamed?
We're having problems with our Netflix account right now, so it's been a little while. Peaky Blinders.
Oh, that's pretty
Done
good.
that
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Yeah, Peaky Blinders was good.
We're watching Expat right now.
With Expat? Okay. I've heard of that. I haven't seen it or anything about it. Expat is what Elizabeth said. I don't think you answered that one either. Okay. How
There
about
is a great one on Netflix related called Life on Earth. It's excellent. It's got some great CGI dinosaurs in it, and it talks about exactly what it sounds like. It's the history of life on Earth.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right, we're going to if you could have coffee with one historical figure, who would it be and why?
George Armstrong Custer. I'd like to find out. I'd like to figure out what he knew when he knew it. And at what point he looked to the left and to the right, behind him and in front of him, and thought, uh-oh.
Yeah, this is in trouble.
I'm not getting out of
we're
this
in trouble, huh?
Yeah.
Whew.
It feels like my life sometimes.
Elizabeth,
I've got this scene on as a screensaver. It's like, yeah, this is this week, right?
Can you top that?
Oh, I can't even try.
Wow. But you know what? That's at some point he did realize he was in trouble.
There was a moment.
Yeah.
Probably didn't last long. It's like, oh, this isn't going to turn out so well.
Oh my. Yeah. Custer's Last Stand. Y'all have an exhibit on that sometime?
Not yet.
Just wait.
There were three things in my childhood, all linked back to books. Okay, the first one is a book by Roy Chapman Andrews called All About Dinosaurs. My mother used to read that to me when I was 5. There was a second book that was given to me by an uncle that was an encyclopedia of the natural world. It was an old school natural history book. I have used that almost every year for one project or another at the museum. And then there was this third book that I picked up in the Bessemer City Central Library in 5th grade called Custer's Last Stand. And I'm working through those 3 books in my career as far as exhibits. And I can tell you, there is a heck of an exhibit out there on the Battle of the Little Bighorn, and I know how to do it. I just find a way to make it happen. I can make people live it.
Yeah, I'm sure Elizabeth said, can we get through this one project first?
Yeah. It's not mission based for us, so I understand.
I get it. I understand. All right, so that was a very entertaining round of what did I call it? Land of the Lost speed round of questions. So very entertaining. So this has been really good, and frankly, I would love to keep talking about this. We literally could talk about this for quite a long time. It's exciting stuff going on. I appreciate what you guys do. So where can our listeners go? Again, I mean, surely most residents know where the Schiele Museum is, but you know what? Maybe they don't. That's why I made that comment at the beginning about sometimes things like the museum for people who live here can be a little taken for granted. So where can our listeners go to learn more, find out what's going on, and just anything and everything?
Yep, SchieleMuseum.org would be the simple answer. And even if folks are not in our town, they can learn more about the project and what's coming to Gastonia and ways they can be involved. Plus all the old other cool things that are going on a daily basis at Schiele. SchieleMuseum.org.
There's a lot going on. If you some of the things that are coming up as well, go 2 episodes ago. I guess it would have been episode 119 to hear a little bit about some other. We talked about the fossil fair specifically, but we mentioned Nathan discussed a little bit about some other things that are going on or about to go on, because there are other things going on besides this project. But this is pretty much what we're going to be hearing about and talking about, because dinosaurs. I mean, come on. So, any last words over there from development or marketing?
They could practice their dinosaur roar.
And Elizabeth does have a dinosaur sweater on that is not on.
Elizabeth manages to find a new dinosaur item to wear every day. I'm amazed by her ability.
That's incredible.
To find dinosaur-related clothes.
That's excellent. So any last words?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. Hope to come again and talk about the project a little further.
Oh yeah, listen, when it gets closer or opens, or we get to that date, if we're still doing this,
it's only 18 months. Come on. We'll be here.
We could do an on location one, with the camera and we can let Naomi sit in the T-Rex's mouth while we're recording.
Wouldn't it be fun for us to bring some live modern dinosaurs in here
Sure.
and have a whole conversation about
Absolutely.
that one day? Yeah.
What was it you brought to Rotary that one time? You remember that?
A Gobolosaurus.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Turkey.
Yeah, turkey.
Geraldo the
yeah,
turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many. Well,
been
turkeys
a
go
while.
in the convention center all day long, so I guess it wasn't.
That was
bad, you know,
during.
but
Yeah, that was during
fun.
COVID.
Yeah,
that was fun.
And I gained a real appreciation for the type of carpet we have at the conference center. It's a great pattern. It hides a lot. And I said, well, that's why they do that in convention centers. Good old Geraldo. Yeah. He's still around.
Yeah,
He's still around.
Well, that's good. So he survived a couple Thanksgivings, huh?
He has.
That's good.
Yeah, well, there's thousands of dollars invested in Geraldo.
Yeah.
It's too expensive to eat.
Well, at least we can count on hearing from the FCC about this episode pretty soon after we release it.
Yeah.
So, again, I appreciate this greatly. I'm again a huge fan of the museum for lots of different reasons. But I grew up in Gaston County schools too, so I had the same experience.
Yeah.
Tony, that you did growing up and going over there. And I've mentioned this before. I grew up with Mr. Lynn's daughter.
Yeah.
And so I've been just we used to go over the old planetarium when you had to go in a different door to the museum.
Yeah. Having grown up in this town, I know a lot of your listeners have.
Yeah.
We've been around the Schiele Museum our whole lives, and we don't realize how special of a thing that this town has in that organization. I know,
I agree.
I'm for the home team here.
Yeah.
But really, you can go into other communities our size, and very seldom do they have anything approaching what the Schiele is. So it is a wonderful asset for the community, and I think our citizens should be proud of the organization, and we want them to be proud of the organization. So it's I think it's a nice reflection for our community and what our people are about.
No question. I appreciate you sharing that. Again, I appreciate the work you guys do because it is it's a nice. I've been places where, and I've mentioned the museum. People are like, oh yeah, I've heard of the Schiele Museum, and I think I mentioned 2 episodes ago where I had some friends come from out of town, from all over the country, and that's where I took them to show Gaston County off. And
we hear that. I mean, what in the world is a museum doing like this in a town the size of Gastonia? But this museum is a product of Gastonia. It's a partnership between the people and our local government and our supporters. Yeah. And it's because of the community that this museum happened. And I think if other communities were willing to take the same approach, they too could have something like that. It's just that our community has been willing to do that, and it's not typical.
Yeah. So again, this is exciting stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing what's happening over the next 12 to 18 months, I guess. And again, we'll hear more about that. And yeah, it'd be great if we were able to keep this going and have you guys back and have another episode specifically on this when we get closer.
Yeah,
or
maybe
after
we can come back
opens.
and talk about how Gastonia has a dinosaur named after it. But that's a story for another day. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
they're giving us the cut sign now.
So we started this on Monday morning, and it's now Tuesday afternoon. That we, normally I do a book recommendation and a thought kind of on the episode, but you know what? I try to come up with something that's related to the topic, but I don't have anything. I would just recommend you go check out the museum and what's going on and you learn, because we're getting ready to have something that's going to be really cool here. So I'm not gonna even try to attempt to come up with anything that kind of relates or touches on our subject today, because it's just it'll be embarrassing. So, to our listeners out there, thanks again for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please continue